Um, we know, in truth, that the commodification and the copywriting of ideas and information is a huge growth industry, especially in the digital age. And there's a tremendous irony there. John Perry Barlow once said to me on the radio, the internet is really basically one huge cosmic copying machine. It will do for intellectual property what Xerox did for government secrecy. And yet we have, there's a giant conflict here, and we're sort of testing it out in the classroom. The open source idea, before it was a radio show, was very simply the notion, not very simply, the notion out of the computer industry that users and customers make the product better by changing it and passing on the improvement. In journalism, the open source idea is that the readers of the New York Times know vastly more than the writers and the editors of the New York Times, and that somehow that wisdom has got to be funneled up. In architecture, it's the notion that the arch, the column, are universal, common ideas. In music, it's the idea that 4/4 time is nobody's property. Even John Coltrane's improvisations become part of a language that we all use and adapt. I mean, not all of us, but the question this hour is, what's happening in the classroom, where we know kids teach each other, fundamentally, and yet the textbook industry thinks it owns the world? Andrew, I wish to just begin in the heart of real New York today. What actually is this confrontation all about? Outline it.
Okay, well, thank you. That's what I want to try to do, and maybe change some people's assumptions about education technology in the 21st century. I want to just quickly ask everyone to raise their hands if they think that the digital divide is better or worse. If you think it's better, meaning that more people are connected than in public schools and in education than it was 10 years ago, raise your hands. Okay, so it's a majority of you. Well, let me give you a couple of quick data points. The average student in a New York City public school spends 1 hour a week using a computer. The average student in New York City public schools' family has to pay $30 to $40 a month for broadband, which is $500 a year, out of the reach of most working class families. There was no broadband 10 years ago. To give you an idea of what kind of disconnect we have, the mayor of New York, our technologist Michael Bloomberg, as some like to call him, just banned cell phones from New York City public schools. And to set the context for this discussion, I want to quickly just, if I can get the slides up, I want to just try to challenge some assumptions and offer some dangerous ideas. Could we get the slides up?